Archaeologists excavating a 5,500-year-old chambered tomb on the sandy peninsula of Tresnis, Orkney, have clarified the monument's layout and recovered two enigmatic polished stone balls. The team from the University of Central Lancashire and National Museums Scotland is investigating the function of the early Neolithic monument, which has been damaged by coastal erosion. Excavations have revealed a five-celled, rectangular original structure, which was then rebuilt as a Bronze Age round cairn around 1800 BC. Dig director Professor Vicky Cummings of UC told CA that the project's 2019 investigation revealed an entrance passage connected to Cell 4 and a Bronze Age cyst within Cell 1 of the Neolithic monument, while the 2021 excavations have uncovered several unusual finds, including two exceptionally well-preserved smooth stone balls, deliberately placed within the tomb. The first one was found tucked up against the first, left-hand orthostat in Cell 1, and the second one was tucked up right in the corner against the orthostat at the back of Cell 3, Vicky said. The purpose of the balls remains obscure, but Vicky says they could have been used as weapons to inflict head injuries or as ritual objects. Although carved stone balls are a Scottish phenomenon, she added, the team has been considering connections between smooth, polished stone balls found in passage tomb contexts in Ireland. The archaeologists also found deposits of cremated human bone between cells 2 and 3, which Vicky said is reasonably unusual for a stalled cairn, where inhumations would be the more expected form of burial. Surprisingly, over 100 skyle knives were found throughout the Neolithic structure. Cell 4, at the end of the entrance passage, contained evidence of extremely uncommon practices, a series of burnt deposits, which, according to Vicky, show that in the earliest phase of the monument they were repeatedly lighting little fires, perhaps cleansing fires, in this compartment. We don't know the dates of everything that we've got from the monument at this stage, she told CA. Some of this activity may be later, but certainly quite a lot of it is primary. Post-excavation analysis is now in progress. Pérenne Fountain. According to myth, the monument owes its name to nymph Pyrene, while another myth links it to Pegasus. The first indications alluding to its use date back to the Neolithic period, while the first spatial configuration dates to the Geometric and Archaic period. During the 2nd BC it included 6 chambers with access to 3 pumping basins. These were fueled by 4 huge cisterns. Its facade was constructed during the early Roman period, bearing Doric semi-columns framing the arched openings in front of the old chambers. A little later, a rectangular yard placed to the north of the fountain was surrounded by high walls. At the center of the courtyard, the open-air fountain was created at a lower level and supplied with water through large ducts below the courtyard floor. The 3-niche courtyard building was constructed towards the late 4th AD, and marble columns and decorative architraves were later added in front of the facade. During the Byzantine era, a small church was built at the southwest corner of the courtyard, which was gradually filled with earth and used as a burial ground. Archaeologists conducting excavations at the Thermopolium of Regio V in the Roman city of Pompeii have revealed an ancient fast food counter. Pompeii was a Roman city, located in the modern commune of Pompeii near Naples in the Campania region of Italy. Pompeii, along with Herculaneum and many villas in the surrounding area, was buried under 13 to 20 feet of volcanic ash and pumice in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. At its peak, Pompeii had a population of around 20,000 inhabitants, and became an important passage for goods that arrived by sea to be sent toward Rome or southern Italy along the nearby Appian Way. Excavations of the commercial fast food structure first began in 2019 in an area between the Vicolo del Nasse di Argento and the Vicolo dei Balconi, where archaeologists previously unearthed an image of a Nereid nymph riding a seahorse and a scene depicting gladiators in combat. In the latest phase of excavations, archaeologists discovered still life scenes of animals that were likely butchered and sold, along with bones of the corresponding animals that match the scenes inside containers embedded in the counter. Depictions include 2 mallard ducks shown upside down, a rooster, and a dog on a lead, which is suggested to be a warning to customers in the manner of the cave canon "Beware of the dog" mosaic at the entrance to the house of the tragic poet in Pompeii. A mocking inscription has also been found scratched onto the counter frame which surrounds the painting of the dog, Nicias Sinede Cacator, translated as Nicias, probably the name of a freedman from Greece, shameless shitter. Massimo Osanna, Interim Director General of the Archaeological Park of Pompeii said, as well as being another insight into daily life at Pompeii, the possibilities for study of the Thermopolium are exceptional, because for the first time an area of this type has been excavated in its entirety, and it has been possible to carry out all the analyses that today's technology permits. Osanna added, the finds will be analyzed in the laboratory, and in particular those remains found in the dolia, terracotta containers, which are expected to yield exceptional data for informing an understanding of what was sold and what the diet was like.
It was, in the words of archaeologist Michael Sipp, the discovery of a lifetime. Unearthed ahead of construction of a railway station in Ebrechtsdorf, just south of Vienna, the roughly 3,000-year-old golden bowl features a sun motif and is the first of its kind found in Austria, reports Szymon Zbijowski for the state-run Polish press agency, PAP. Vessels of this kind have been found in other European countries, including Spain, France and Switzerland, says Sipp, who is leading the excavation for Novitas, a German company that assists with archaeological digs. Only 30 similar bowls are known to exist, according to Heritage Daily. Measuring about 8 inches long and 2 inches high, the Ebrechtsdorf bowl is made of a thin metal consisting of 90% gold, 5% silver and 5% copper. This is the second find of this type discovered to the east of the Alpine line, Sipp tells PAP. He adds, much more is known from the area of northern Germany, Scandinavia and Denmark because this kind of pottery was produced there. The golden vessel is linked to the Urnfield culture, a prehistoric society that spread across Europe beginning in the 12th century BCE, per Encyclopaedia Britannica. The group derived its name from the funerary ritual of placing ashes in urns and burying the containers in fields. An image of the sun with rays emanating from it adorns the newly discovered bowl. Inside the vessel, archaeologists found 2 gold bracelets and coiled golden wires wrapped around now decomposed fabric or leather. They were probably decorative scarves, Sipp tells PAP. He posits that the accessories were used during religious ceremonies honoring the sun. Sipp and his colleagues unearthed around 500 bronze objects, clay pottery and other artifacts at the Austrian site, which appears to have been a sizable prehistoric settlement. The team found the golden bowl in shallow ground near the wall of a house last year. The numerous and valuable finds in the form of bronze and gold objects are unique in this part of Europe, and so is the fact that the settlement in Ebrechtsdorf was so large, Sipp tells PAP. Soon after the find's discovery, the Austrian government stepped in to ensure the artifact's safety. The golden bowl will soon go on view at the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna.
A Neolithic passage tomb in the Boyne Valley, County Meath in Ireland was discovered in 1699 AD and became a tourist attraction long before it was excavated and restored from 1962 AD to 1975 AD by the late Professor Michael J. O'Kelly, Professor of Archaeology at University College Cork. Most tombs are discovered underground, often by accident, but Newgrange was already well known. According to Ancient.eu, Newgrange was built long before Stonehenge, the Mycenaean culture of ancient Greece, and the pyramids in Giza. The construction took place about 3200 BC, and is part of one of the most important megalithic complexes in Europe. 2 other ancient structures are also present, Noath and Douth, as well as 37 burials. Newgrange is 249 feet across and 39 feet high and covers about an acre of land. Upon entrance to the tomb one would find a 62-foot passageway that leads to a large central chamber with 3 smaller chambers in the walls corresponding to 3 directions, north, west and south. O'Kelly believed it was not just a burial chamber, but a monument because an opening in the roof coincides exactly with the winter solstice. When the rock covering the hole is removed, the entire chamber and passageway are brightly illuminated during the sunrise of December 21st. The base is surrounded by 97 granite and quartz stones making a curb. The entrance stone is highly decorated with swirls, circles, chevrons and other megalithic art symbols, according to Newgrange.com. The Stone Age peoples who built the mound seem to have been skilled artisans in a well-ordered society who used stone, antler or bone for tools. The stones just for the curb would have weighed 200,000 tons, leading researchers to believe they were brought by boat up the River Boyne. The builders took special care to ensure the monument would remain dry by packing sand from the river and putty made from burnt soil into the joints of the roof stones. They also cut grooves into the roof slabs to channel the water away from the structure, which has remained dry to this day. O'Kelly relates the story of finding the mound in his work, Newgrange, Archaeology, Art and Legend. The landowner in 1699 AD, Charles Campbell, was looking for stones. In a large mound on his property he found the type of stones he was looking for, and as they were carted away the entrance to the tomb appeared. Welsh scholar and antiquary, Edward Lhwyd, just happened to be in Ireland, and upon learning of the discovery he rushed to Newgrange. He took notes, and of the letters he wrote 4 of them survive. After that Sir Thomas Molyneux of the University of Dublin researched the cave, as they called it, and after his information was released more researchers than ever were attracted to the mound who, unfortunately, helped themselves to some of the artifacts inside. None of these people, however, believed the monument was created by the crude and barbarian natives of Ireland. Because of this, many believed it had been built by Vikings or Egyptians. In the 19th century, scholar John O'Donovan and artist George Petrie investigated the mound and produced a much more reasonable account. In 1882 AD the monument was transferred to the care of the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland under the Ancient Monuments Protection Act, and conservation began. In 1993 AD Newgrange was designated a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, and is one of the most famous Neolithic burial sites in the world. Over 200,000 tourists visit Newgrange every year, and a lottery is held to select those who wish to participate in the sunrise observance at the winter solstice. After the Celts invaded Ireland about the 3rd century BC, the monument was largely forgotten during the suppression of Gaelic culture by the English. After the Norman conquest of 1169 AD the English increased their suppression, until the Irish finally rebelled in the early 20th century, culminating in the newly created Republic of Ireland in the 1920s.
Inside this remote South American cave lies an astonishing array of prehistoric art. Deep in the heart of Argentina, in a cave cut out of the rock by the swelling of the Pinturas River, is one of the most incredible collections of prehistoric art in the world. It takes a difficult journey to get to it, along tracks of shattered stone. However, it gives a glimpse into the cultural lives of our long-dead ancestors. Humans first dabbed paint on the walls of caves more than 40,000 years ago. Indeed, the first examples of cave art could be older than 65,000 years. That means that, most likely, Neanderthals painted them 20 millennia before the first modern humans set foot in Europe, and mystery still surrounds the purpose of the art that ancient people created. The caves where paintings have been found are often in places that are difficult to get to, and researchers have found no evidence that they were houses or refugees. That has left scientists with 2 possible theories about the reason that our ancestors decided to make their marks. Some believe that the paintings provided a way to communicate, like a prehistoric chatboard. Others have suggested that the marks on the cave walls have a spiritual significance, as though they are perhaps tied into some religious beliefs or ceremonies that ancient humans believed in. But there are stranger mysteries to uncover too. For one thing, the paintings are eerily alike wherever in the world they're discovered. Many of the paintings showed wild animals, while others are negative pictures of hands that are created by applying color to the wall while the hand is held in place. And it's these that bring us back to Argentina. You see, in Spanish, the cave is known as Cueva de las Manos, which translates into English as the Cave of the Hands. Depicted on the walls of the cavern are hundreds of images of human hands. But they're not the only thing that you'll find if you ever take the long trip to visit. Although the cave looks large, once you've passed through the almost 50-foot wide entrance, you'll find the space vanishes. The ceiling soars 30 feet above you by the entrance, but before long, if you're tall, you may well be stooping. That's because the ground rises towards the ceiling. The earliest artworks discovered in the cave have been carbon dated to about 7,300 BC. However, some of the art is even older. It ranges in age from 9,000 years old to 13,000 years old, but scientists did not find that out from the paintings themselves. Instead, archaeologists have run tests on the remains of the pipes that the painters used to spray materials on the walls. It's likely that the ancient artists put colored paint inside these bone instruments before blowing it out onto their outstretched hands, leaving the strange silhouettes. Many of the paintings of hands that you'll see in the cave are of left hands, but scientists don't know whether that means the artists held the pipes with their right hands and blew onto their left, or whether they held it in their left and blew onto their right hands turned backwards. It's one mystery that we'll probably never resolve. Alongside the painted hands, there are other images in the Cava de las Manos. Many of these depict animals that the people who made the paintings would have hunted, as well as scenes showing those hunts. There are other stranger marks as well, including some on the cave ceiling. One of the hunting skills shown in the images of hunting involves using bolas. These are weapons made of rope or twine that have weights attached to either end. They were tossed at animals to entangle their legs and bring them down. But people may well have used these weapons to make art too. You see, there are distinctive red dots in the ceiling of the cave. The use of bolas can explain them. It's likely the weapons were dipped in color pigment before being tossed upwards. When they hit the ceiling, they left their mark thanks to the ancient ink. One thing that scientists still aren't sure of is just who made the paintings. It's likely that ancestors of a people known as the Tehilchi did them. The Tehilchi were hunter-gatherers who still lived in the region when European explorers and colonists came to the region in the 1800s. The history of the Tehilchi stretches back almost 15,000 years. During the winter, they fished and caught shellfish at lower altitudes, and during the spring, they returned to the mountains and higher ground to hunt game. But this lifestyle has not left too many traces. And while the history of the Tehilchi runs far back in time, it may surprise you how recently humans occupied the Cave of the Hands. Archaeological evidence suggests that as recently as 700 AD, people lived in the cave system, but after that, it was a long time before the cave was rediscovered. Archaeologists first investigated the caves in the later years of the 1940s. In the 1960s, they ramped up research within the caves, sparking a quarter of a century of interest in the marks within and the people who made them. In 1999, UNESCO listed it as a World Heritage Site. Tests on the images in the caves have given us a glimpse into some of the techniques used to make them. We know, for example, how the painters formulated the pigments that they deployed, but we still don't know what purpose these amazing images had. There's a chance that we might never know. To keep the integrity of the site, archaeological research has been kept to a minimum in recent years. There's been no restoration work in the cave either. For tens of thousands of years, these pieces of incredible artwork have remained unaltered. They're likely to remain that way too. This is a snapshot not just of one part of the past, but of thousands of years of accumulated history, preserved in place thanks to kind conditions and inaccessibility. They are a last reminder of people long gone from this planet, enshrined in the rock for all to see.
Archaeologists have made an incredible discovery after uncovering a 3,600-year-old intact Egyptian teenage mummy, littered with valuable jewelry. The discovery took place at the necropolis of Dra Abu el Naga, located on the West Bank in Egypt, near the Valley of the Kings by archaeologists from the Jehudi project. The body was found to be adorned with 2 earrings, 2 rings and 4 necklaces, including one valuable 74-piece piece made of gems, despite the body being almost 4,000 years old, according to the Spanish National Research Council, CSIC. The valuable necklace was made up of 74 pieces including amethyst, carnelian and several other gemstones, which have yet to be identified. An amber falcon representing Horus was the central figure of the necklace with 2 Egyptian beetles used as amulets. One of her rings was made of bone, while the other was blue glass with a rope band, according to reports. According to the archaeologists of the Jehudi project, the body was of a female teenager who died between the ages of 15 to 16 and was just over 5 feet tall. Experts also revealed the body had been looted over time, although experts said it had been treated with a certain amount of care. The coffin was painted white and had a unique inscription of a tree trunk. Medieval crime? Lakes and rivers sometimes act as more than fun places to pass a hot day, dipping in and out of cool water to ease the discomfort of a blazing summer sun. They've been known to function as crime scenes and graves too. Sometimes criminals dump their victims into deep waters to hide the evidence, so to speak. After all, unless law enforcement officials know where to look, seldom do divers explore an area's waters just on a hunch bodies might lay on the bottom. For that reason, a lake can make an excellent cover for a bad guy looking to dispose of his victim. Lakes and rivers are also the places where literally hundreds of thousands of soldiers, perhaps millions of them who participated in the wars that have occurred globally over many generations, have fallen after battle. In World War II alone, the number of soldiers who slipped beneath the surface of oceans, rivers and lakes across Europe is almost inconceivable. They died and fell into the murky depths, their bodies never recovered. That was the fate of a medieval soldier whose remains were recently discovered in a lake in Lithuania. Experts know he was a soldier because 2 knives and a sword were found near the body, all of which were amazingly well preserved, said the archaeologists and divers involved in the retrieval. Also, he was still wearing the leather boots he died in, and other leather items were found near the remains, which experts think are straps for the knives. All this bounty for archaeologists was found 9 meters down in Lake Sveja, the largest lake in Lithuania and the source of many other valuable, centuries-old discoveries, reports Live Science. It is near the Dubingiai Bridge, located near the ruins of Dubingiai Castle, once an imposing, important structure in medieval Lithuania and vital to the country's defense against outside threats. Once the remains, and the relics found alongside them, are restored and properly preserved by the University of Vilnius, they will be put on display at the Lithuanian National Museum. This discovery is not the first turned up in Lake Sveja. Plenty of other items from the 16th and 17th centuries have been found during previous explorations of the lake's sediment. Teams have found pieces of broken-down boats, a ferry, and even parts of the old Dubingiai Bridge that once stood across the lake. The lake has been explored on and off since 1998, when developments in underwater archaeology equipment made it possible for the sediment to be examined yet left undisturbed. This find in particular is a memorable one, experts say. According to English archaeologist Elena Prankenate, the underwater find, which was not a burial, was unique and the first of its kind in Lithuania. However, the cause of the soldier's death has not yet been confirmed, though team members suggest he may have been one of the soldiers guarding the castle hundreds of years ago. It was once part of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, part of a dynastic union, as it is called, with the Kingdom of Poland. Work excavating Lake Sveja will continue, and experts hope there may be more valuable discoveries awaiting them as divers keep sorting through the deep water. The soldiers' remains were amazingly well preserved because of the sediment, which seemed to freeze the body, and its accompanying artifacts in time, revealing even more details about who this young man was. Are there more like him waiting to be found on the lake's bottom? Only time, and the hard work of divers and archaeologists, will tell. 2 battle axes used in hand-to-hand fighting at the Battle of Grunwald over 600 years ago have been found by detectorists during a sweep of the famous battle site in northern Poland. The find, which has astonished archaeologists, is all the more important as the melee weapons are in remarkably good condition. The axes are of 2 different types. One has a longer closed shaft for the handle, and the other has a shorter open shaft. According to Dr. Simon Draja, director of the Museum of the Battle of Grunwald, the discovery of the battle axes are an archaeological sensation. In 7 years of our archaeological research we have never had such an exciting, important and well-preserved find, he stressed. According to the director, there is little doubt that the axes come from what many historians say was the largest battle of the Middle Ages in Europe. The context of these finds, the preliminary dating to the 15th century, and the type of axes clearly indicate that they are directly related to the Battle of Grunwald of July 15, 1410, he said. The Battle of Grunwald was fought in 1410, and saw the joint forces of Poland and Lithuania defeat the Knights of the Teutonic Order. Over 50,000 knights, gunners and infantry clashed on the fields near the village of Grunwald in what was possibly the biggest battle of medieval Europe. The battle marked the end of the Order's expansion along the southeastern coast of the Baltic Sea, and the beginning of the decline of its power. It also marked the emergence of Poland-Lithuania as one of Europe's most powerful states. The battle axes were found by Alexander Miedwidu, a member of the search team who stumbled upon them with his metal detector in a marshy area, at a depth of about 80 centimeters, a few meters away from each other. The axes are of 2 different types. One has a longer closed shaft for the handle, and the other has a shorter open shaft. Although they have been in the ground for over 6 centuries, the axes are in almost perfect condition. According to Miedwidu, this is because they ended up in swampy ground, which as a wet environment protected the axes off from air and corrosion. He said, after removing these axes, we rinsed them under running water, and they look like new. The axes have been preserved in such a good condition that they even have the rivets by which they were attached to their wooden handles. Describing how he felt when he found the axes, he said it was a huge shot of endorphins, adrenaline plus 100. It was like flying to the moon. Like crossing a bridge between people from 1410 and us. 70 metal detectorists took part in the search, which ended on Saturday. For 7 years, dozens of detectorists and history lovers from all over Europe have been coming to the battle site under the supervision of archaeologists to comb through the fields. The specificity of this place requires us to change our methods a little bit. We do not do it with the typical excavation method. We cooperate with detectorists who have their own equipment, their own metal detectors, said Adam Gorecki, the archaeological research manager. In previous years, archaeologists from many countries have come to search the site of the battle. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, fewer people took part this year. Despite its reduced size, the search produced incredible results. During this year's research of the Grunwald battlefield, several dozen artifacts were found in addition to the 2 battle axes. These include a handle fragment of a medieval short sword as well as dozens of other objects, mainly spearheads. The museum is not revealing the precise location of the find because they believe that other artifacts are still lying in the ground. For this reason, they are planning more archaeological excavations later this year. The mystery still waiting to be discovered is the location of the mass grave of knights who died in one of the greatest battles of medieval Europe. So far, burial places have only been found near the ruins of the battle chapel. During archaeological work in the 1960s and 1980s, bones of about 300 men were discovered there. In the battle, however, several thousand people died fighting on both sides. Archaeologists have found a red sandstone Roman sarcophagus from the early 4th century during excavations on a school site in Cologne. It has been cracked open. Probably grave robbers were at work there in the past, said the head of the Roman Germanic Museum, Marcus Trier. In the process, he said, the skeleton's bones had also been jumbled. Nevertheless, the robbers had not stolen all the grave goods. During their excavation work in July, the archaeologists discovered 8 vessels made of ceramics and glass as well as bronze fittings in a niche, which probably came from a wooden box that is no longer preserved. At the moment we cannot say whether a woman or a man was buried here, says the director of the Roman Germanic Museum, Professor Dr. Marcus Trier. The wooden box could indicate a woman. Based on the grave goods in the sarcophagus, we assume that it was a wealthy person. At the beginning of the 4th century, the place where the tomb was found was still outside the city. It was a troubled time. Attacks by Germans on the Roman cities increased. There was also unrest within the empire. That's why people withdrew behind the city wall, explains Professor Trier. The dead were then buried in the abandoned suburbs. The sarcophagus is now being restored, he said, and may later be placed in the extension to the high school on whose grounds the burial site is located. The restoration of a soot-filled ancient Egyptian temple has revealed the previously unknown names of ancient Egyptian constellations, according to experts in Germany and Egypt. The restoration has also uncovered the gorgeous original colors the ancient Egyptians painted the 2,000-year-old temple. As workers in Egypt remove soot and dirt from the temple, sometimes with a mixture of alcohol and distilled water, the original painted carvings and hieroglyphics beneath are so vibrant, it looks like it was painted yesterday, project leader Christian Laetz, a professor of Egyptology at the University of Tübingen in Germany, told Live Science. But we are not repainting anything, we are just removing the soot. During the restoration, researchers cleaned ancient carved scenes depicting the constellations, including the Big Dipper, known as Masectiu, and Orion, known as Sa. They also found inscriptions about previously unknown constellations, including one called Apdun Ra, or the geese of Ra, who is the ancient Egyptian sun deity, Laetz said. However, without an image to accompany these descriptions, there's no way to know which stars in the night sky they described, he said. A team from the Museum of London Archaeology have excavated the largest Anglo-Saxon cemetery in Northamptonshire at Overstone Gate. Excavations were conducted over the course of 12 months, in preparation for the construction of a housing development. The team from Mola have exhumed 154 burials dating from the Anglo-Saxon period, AD 450 to 1066, containing grave goods that total around 3,000 excavated artifacts. Some of the discoveries include 150 brooches, 75 wrist clasps, 15 rings, thousands of beads, and 15 chatelaines, a decorative belt hook or clasp worn at the waist with a series of chains suspended from it. Various weapons have also been excavated, including 15 shield bosses, 40 knives, and 25 weapons, along with domestic objects such as bone combs and cosmetic kits. The team also revealed an adjacent Anglo-Saxon settlement that contained 22 core structures, with another 20 structures in scattered locations. Prehistoric evidence included 3 Bronze Age round barrows, 46 prehistoric burials, and 4 Bronze Age buildings. The Overstone Lees site contains by far the biggest Anglo-Saxon cemetery ever found in Northamptonshire. It is rare to find both an Anglo-Saxon settlement and a cemetery in a single excavation. The excavations will help us understand the way people lived in both the Anglo-Saxon period, around 1,500 years ago, as well as the Bronze Age, nearly 4,000 years ago. The human remains will tell us about diet, health, and even the origins of the people themselves, whilst their buildings can teach us what their day-to-day lives were like, and how they utilized the local landscape in these two different periods. Massive 7,000-year-old structures with a rounded or circular plan known as roundels discovered near Torrin, consisted of ditches up to 3 meter wide and 2 meter deep, archaeological research shows. The enormous structures, which required the work of dozens of people equipped with bone-digging tools, were discovered in 2019 by doctoral students Mateusz Sosnowski from the Institute of Archaeology of the Nicolaus Copernicus University in Jerzy Czerniak from the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnology of the Polish Academy of Sciences in Warsaw, while analyzing data from Google Maps and Google Earth. In arable fields in the Lysimais area, the researchers noticed outlines of 2 round structures approximately 85 m in diameter around 5 kilometers from each other. They consist of a system of 3 oval ditches with a common center. The researchers described them as sensational, as these types of buildings had not been found so far east of the Vistula River before. This year, a team of archaeologists led by Jerzy Czerniak began field research of the 2 structures. Analyses were carried out with a magnetometer, which enabled them to look underground without interfering with the surface. As a result, researchers reconstructed their course in places where they were not visible from a bird's eye view. They also started limited excavations with financial support from the Lysimais commune. Mateusz Sosnowski from the Nicolaus Copernicus University in Torrin said, "These were huge structures from about 7,000 years ago. They required the effort of dozens of people. Bone or horn tools were probably used to dig the ditches. Excavations were not easy either, even though we were certainly equipped with better tools than the roundel builders." During excavations, the archaeologists took samples of burnt coals from inside the ditches to carry out C-14 radioactive carbon isotope analyses and determine the approximate age of the structures. They also found dozens of fragments of ceramic vessels. Sosnowski said, "Most of the shells we found belong to the incised linear pottery culture community. It is a surprise for us, because until now roundels were believed to be built by later communities, associated, among others, with the punctured linear pottery culture. The roundel was probably built in the place of an earlier settlement, but it cannot be ruled out that the structure is older than we thought. Expert analysis will shed light on this issue." Animal bones and antler fragments were also discovered in the ditch, which they suspect came from rituals. Roundels are the oldest examples of monumental architecture in Europe. Archaeologists believe that they served as ceremonial centers, temples, or places of assembly. They were usually surrounded not only by concentric ditches, but also palisades, so they could also have defensive function. So far, more than 130 have been located, a third of them in Austria. The remaining structures are in today's Hungary, Slovakia, Czechia, and Germany. In 2014, only 3 such structures were known in Poland. We currently know of approximately 10. Researchers from Cornell University and the National Park Service have discovered the remnants of a wooden fort in Alaska, the Tlingit people's last physical bulwark against Russian colonization forces in 1804. The Tlingit built what they called Shiskano, the sapling fort, on a peninsula in modern-day Sitka, Alaska, where the mouth of Kasdahin, Indian River, meets Sitka Sound at the Sitka National Historical Park. The fort was the last physical barrier to fall before Russia's six-decade occupation of Alaska, which ended when the United States purchased Alaska in 1867 for $7 million. Thomas Urban, researcher at Cornell University, said, "The fort's definitive physical location had eluded investigators for a century. Previous archaeological digs had found some suggestive clues, but they never really found conclusive evidence that tied these clues together." The researchers discovered the site using geophysical imaging techniques and ground-penetrating radar, a non-intrusive method that uses radar pulses to image the subsurface. To find Shiskano, Urban created a grid to see if the electromagnetic induction methods could spot the potential outline of the fort, and then created a small grid for dragging the ground-penetrating radar. "We believe this survey has yielded the only convincing, multi-method evidence to date for the location of the sapling fort, which is a significant locus in New World colonial history and an important cultural symbol of Tlingit resistance to colonization," Urban said. In 1799, Russia sent a small army to take over Alaska in order to develop the fur trade, but the Tlingit successfully expelled them in 1802. Expecting the Russians to return, the Tlingit built a wooden fort over 2 years, the trapezoidal-shaped Shiskano. The Tlingit armed it with guns, cannons and gunpowder obtained from British-American traders. When the Russians returned in 1804, the Tlingit held them off for 5 days, but suffered a setback when a gunpowder supply being carried to the fort from storage across Sitka Sound blew up in a canoe. The Tlingit clans escaped Shiskano by night across Shi, Baranof Island, to Chautalay-with-Akudenau, Halibut Man Fort, and the Russians then established a trading post at what is now Sitka. A large-scale survey was necessary to convincingly rule out alternative locations for this historically and culturally significant structure, said co-author Brendan Carter of the National Park Service. Archaeologists conducting excavations in a field near the village of Slusko in Poland have discovered thousands of silver artifacts dating back nearly 900 years. A team from the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnology of the Polish Academy of Sciences made the discovery after researchers were sent to photograph a previous coin haul site, Poland's largest coin haul discovered in 1935, and were informed by the local villagers of rumors of another buried treasure in the vicinity. This led to a systematic study at the intersection of 3 plots of land in the northern part of the village. After failing to find any evidence of the treasure, the team turned their attention to a field near the village road where they discovered a ceramic vessel containing denarii, with the overall haul consisting of 6,500 silver coins arranged in linen pouches, silver ingots, 2 gold rings, and 2 wedding bands. Archaeologist Dariusz Wiksolkowski from the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnology Polish Academy of Sciences said, "The rings were probably made using precious stones, polished in a semicircular way. They are additionally decorated with golden granules. The larger ring is tapered and polygonal and the smaller one is bar-shaped, with punched holes. One of the rings has an inscription which reads, 'Lord, may you help your servant Maria,' which researchers believe may have belonged to a Ruthenian princess named Maria, who was the daughter of Sviatoslavovich Iziaslavich, Prince of Kiev, and the sister-in-law of the 12th century Polish king, Boleslaw III Wrymouth, also known as Boleslaus III the Wrymount. Dr. Kadzierski told First News that, "We know that at that time, the wife of Boleslaw the Wrymouth was a Russian princess named Zbislawa. According to the literature, she was supposed to have a sister Maria, who was married to Pyotr Lostowik, a Polish noble and ruler Mosnoladka, of part of Silesia. Following the capture of Prince Volodar of Paramyshal by Pyotr Lostowik, it is believed that the haul may have been part of a dowry intended for Maria that was hidden near Slusko." Professor Adrian Jusupovic from the Institute of History of the Polish Academy of Sciences in Warsaw suggests that her husband's position and property may have prompted her to deposit the dowry, which was later joined by the wedding ring. Farmers digging in a citrus grove near Mexico's Gulf Coast have found a striking, 6-foot-tall statue of a female figure who may represent an elite woman rather than a goddess, or some mixture of the two, experts said Friday. The National Institute of Anthropology and History said it was the first such statue found in a region known as the Huasteca. The carved woman has an elaborate hairpiece and marks of status, and may date to around 1450 to 1521, the institute said. While the site where it was found is nearer to the pre-Hispanic ruin site of El Tajan, the statue shows some influences of the Aztecs. Farmers digging in the grove found it on New Year's Day and quickly reported it to authorities. The area where it was found was not previously known to be an archaeological site, and the stone statue may have been moved from some unknown original site. Just who the open-mouthed, wide-eyed statue depicts remains something of a mystery. Institute archaeologist Maria Eugenia Maldonado Vite wrote that this could be a ruler, based on her posture and attire more than a goddess. Maldonado added it could be a late fusion between the team goddesses and women of high political or social status in the Huasteca. Those goddesses were part of a fertility cult. Susan Gillespie, an anthropology professor at the University of Florida, said there are quite a few pre-Hispanic depictions of elite women and female rulers elsewhere, best known among the classic Maya, but also in classic Zapotec bas-reliefs and post-classic Mixtec codices. Colonial-era Aztec documents mentioned women rulers, or at least holders of the crown to pass on to their successors, so that is not a surprise, Gillespie added. Women were highly valued in the pre-Hispanic era, drastically losing their status only after the conquest. However, she noted that if there is only one such find, it's hard to say whether it is significant, or even correctly identified. Archaeology works best with repeated occurrences, to show a pattern. In 1994 in the Mayan ruin site of Palenque, archaeologists found the tomb of a woman dubbed the Red Queen because of the red pigment covering her tomb. But it has never been firmly established that the woman, whose tomb dates from between 600 and 700 AD, was a ruler of Palenque. Mount Padang, Indonesia is a country famous for its white sand beaches, blazing hot sun, and crystal blue waters that lure millions of tourists every year, from continents as close as Australia or as distant as the southern United States. Its beauty is legendary, and locals are justifiably proud of the way nature seems to have given the country a double dose of unspoiled landscapes and memorable sunsets. But there is much more to this island paradise than beaches on which to relax and oceans in which to surf and swim. Indonesia has some remarkable archaeological structures, some of which date back thousands of years. These locations appeal to scientists every bit as much as the beaches appeal to visitors, and there is much to be gained from experts' investigations into these sites. One example is the pyramid atop Mount Padang, in West Java. It's not a pyramid in the usual sense one might imagine them, like the famous pyramids of Egypt. But it too has secrets buried just beneath its surface, like Egyptian pyramids have tombs of kings and queens under their surfaces. And the secrets lurking under the rock and earth at Mount Padang are as complex and compelling, and also very old, as the ones that lie beneath the Giza pyramids near Cairo. The mountain has always been a place where residents go to pay their respects, pray and meditate. But until recently, in 2018, what was underneath the crumbling ground of the megalith was unknown, although it was hiding in plain sight, as the old adage goes. Thanks to modern archaeological technology, like scanners and ground X-rays, scientists now know that there is a massive weaving of tunnels and chambers and pillars just 10 feet below the mountain's surface. Hiding in plain sight indeed. A team of experts long imagined that there were many surprises beneath the pillars atop the structure. Now, they have a clearer understanding of and insight into what those surprises entail. According to the team's leader, Danny Hillman Natawajaja, who is a senior scientist with the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, it's a unique temple, he explained to the press 2 years ago. It's not like the surrounding topography, which is very much eroded. This looks artificial to us. In other words, the experts believe it's man-made. The team used advanced techniques to peer beneath the stone surface without disturbing it, including ground-penetrating radar, 3D imaging and other methods. Ultimately, they found a 15-hectare-sized structure consisting of pillars, terrace steps, paths, spaces, rock columns and more. Each time they looked further down, new revelations and structural marvels appeared. At the second layer down, the scientists found built artifacts they estimate to be 7,500 to 8,300 years old. Down further, to a third layer, construction at 49 feet deep may be as much as 28,000 years old. Clearly, the people who built the temple did so in a layering fashion, putting a new structure on top of an existing one. However, while some things about the site changed, steps put in here, walls there, depending on who was doing the building, one thing, experts say, likely didn't change: the reason for the temple's existence. Just as folks today go to the site to ponder the existence of a higher power and extend their respects, that is probably what they used it for so many thousands of years ago as well. In life, many things change, but many things stay the same. At Mount Padang, construction over the centuries changed its appearance, but the reason for that construction did not: people's abiding faith in a higher power.
Imagining the climate of the Antarctica region usually prompts visions of dogs, sleds, parkas, and explorers like Ernest Shackleton struggling to access the area, only to be beaten back by snow, ice and freezing temperatures. The weather he encountered then, in the early part of the 20th century, is the weather we imagine even today: not a place to go without the warmest clothing available on the market stowed firmly with our gear. But now scientists, paleontologists and other experts of ancient eras say that Antarctica was not always thus, that once upon a very long time ago, its landscape bore a greater resemblance to rainforests than the inside of a refrigerator and had temperatures that were downright balmy. It's difficult to imagine, certainly, but about 90 million years ago, sediment samples indicate, Antarctica had the landscape best described as temperate. There was lush vegetation teeming with organisms, hardly the vision most of us have when we conjure up the views there. A team of international experts, including geologists and paleontologists, worked together to drill into the ice to uncover what remains of past periods far down below the ice. They worked on the icebreaker vessel RV Polar Stern, on the Amundsen Sea not far from Pine Island Glacier. It was one sample in particular, because of its unique coloring, that prompted them to do a CT scan to see what secrets it held. It showed what is known as root fossils, the remains of vegetation that were incredibly well preserved. One of the team members, Tina van de Vleert of the Imperial College in London, described this evidence as remarkable and added that it showed an unanticipated world of swampy, temperate rainforests grew close to the South Pole. Another team member suggested that New Zealand's South Island is likely most comparable to the landscape that once existed under the ice, so many millions of years ago. They found evidence of conifers and other trees, ferns and even flowering plants, although they didn't find fossils of any animals. Still, they believe that some dinosaurs roamed there along with flying reptiles and a variety of insects. Team members said the region likely got as warm as 77 degrees in summertime and did not plunge to the extreme cold temperatures in winter that we today associate with Antarctica. One marine geologist on the team suggested that the average annual temperature would have been between 53 and 55 degrees. That's a lot different than modern Antarctica, which gets temperatures as low as -40 during its harshest periods. Furthermore, it endures a period of 4 months during which there is no sunlight, called polar night, guaranteeing that no plant life today could possibly live, let alone thrive. The team has published their findings in the online science journal, Nature. These exciting revelations about Antarctica are yet more reason why geology and other related sciences can teach us so much about our planet, what it once looked like, and just as importantly how different regions flourished and perished. The Earth continues to evolve and change, never remaining static for any length of time. We worry that the planet changes solely because of global warming, but clearly that's too simple an assertion. The Earth was once home to dinosaurs and rainforests in the most unlikely places, but climate patterns changed and mutated because of factors other than mankind. It offers a little solace in these times, when we blame